So I kind of just noticed that I didn't do a video on Raikou or Shuten Doji, even though they were on Rate Up and there was like not a whole lot going on. So that would have been like a few good videos to make at the time. But yeah, we're just gonna drop this Raikou video in the middle of the Zero event real quick, because Raikou is a very good 5-star berserker to have. Although she kind of gets replaced by Arjuna Alter, but we're not gonna talk about that because we're still like about like a year and a half off from Arjuna Alter being on the NA version, so she's still viable until then. So her hits are pretty decent, like they're fine. Her NP charge stat is a little low, but if you get arts crits on those arts cards, she will refund her NP. And the whole point with Raikou, as we'll get into, is she does her NP drops a lot of stars, then you absorb those stars back into yourself, you get some big arts crits, and you hopefully refund your NP. And if you don't, well then hopefully your Merlin or Waver, whoever you're bringing, will help you refund that NP. Her first skill absorbs crit stars for 3 turns on a 5-turn cooldown. However, it will get a buff to where it also gets 60% crit damage for 3 turns as well, making it a very, very good skill. Or I should say 3 attacks for 3 turns, but if you're running a team with like double support, then it might as well be 3 turns, because what's the likelihood that you're going to get all of your crit cards on the same turn that you pop the skill? I mean, I guess it could happen. We have a lot of like card manipulating shenanigans, but you know what I'm saying. It's big crit damage, and Raikou desperately needed this because when she wasn't firing her NP, she was kind of a potato. Like, she could do some crit damage, but this just helps her out immensely and makes her really, really good. Unfortunately, again, you know, that's also something that Arjuna Alter does, and he has a battery. So, but this is not the Arjuna Alter video. Let me stop hating on Raikou real quick. Raikou's second skill is her Mana Burst skill. It gives her 30% Buster performance for 1 turn and an evasion for 1 turn on a 6-turn cooldown. The unfortunate thing is that this is not a true Mana Burst. It's not 50%. It's only 30%, and that's probably why Raikou doesn't hit as hard as you'd think she should, because if she had a 50% Mana Burst, oh baby, she'd be doing some big, massive damage. But remember, this was like our first 5-star Buster AoE Berserker, and so I'm sure that they didn't want to invalidate all the other classes by having her just be so good, and then they drop Arjuna Alter like 2 years later and do the exact same thing. Finally, there's Mystery Killer, which gives her strength against Demonic or Earth and Sky Servant, and those are both 50% damage mods, both on a 3-turn on a 6-turn cooldown. So it's not too bad. I don't believe you fight very many demonic enemies outside of like Oni. Like, Oni are kind of common now as enemies. You might see them peppered in here and there. Earth or Sky Servants are also somewhat popular, somewhat common, and since she's a berserker, she can fight any of them. It's not like, say, Scheherazade having the King buff. It means she can only fight King Assassins or King Berserkers, right? Like, you could bring her to fight Artoria, but she's not going to be doing as much damage because she doesn't have the class modifier, and if it's a boss fight, not having class advantage means she's going to get slammed really hard, right? So Raikou will get slammed by everybody, but she'll slam everybody back, so it's give and take. She has a ton of passives that I'm not really going to go over here because I don't really think any of them are too noteworthy, except for the Madness enhancement being 12% free Buster. But then her NP, which has been upgraded, does damage to all enemies, 7 hits, reduces their critical chance, which hopefully allows her to survive a little bit, and buffs her star gen by 100% before she attacks. Now, that can go up depending on your overcharge. If you can get her up to overcharge 5, she'll do 300% star gen, which might be a little bit overkill, especially since you're probably running her with Merlin, and Merlin's second skill doubles as a crit star gen skill as well, so you can just pop this with her NP. Fighting numerous enemies, you'll drop like 50 stars easy, and then she'll just do big crits. Hopefully the next turn, it's not Merlin getting all the stars, and hopefully you actually have Raikou face cards, which is the only issue. Now, I would recommend people to summon for Raikou, especially because I know people really, really like Raikou for obvious reasons. But I've been talking about it a little bit, you know, here throughout this video, but Arjuna Alter is going to be coming in like a year and a half, and he is not only like the best AoE Berserker in the game, but probably like one of the highest DPS servants in the game. Like one of the best servants, like, period, because of how good he is. His AoE hits really hard. He has really good NP gen. He has a 30% battery and specifically absorbs stars to his Buster cards. And then he does more damage to people if they have debuffs, and he himself puts debuffs on people with his NP. So he just hits really hard. Like, he's just insane. We'll talk about him when we get to him in the future. But if you really like Raikou, then feel justified in summoning for her. I hate to say it, but she's like a better Spartacus, right? Spartacus might have the battery, but he's gonna hit like a wet noodle because he's a 1-star. Raikou is at least a 5-star. She has decent stats. You can bring her up against like mixed servant fights, right? And be like, oh, okay, well, there's some servants in here that have the Earth or Sky attribute, and you know, she'll do really well in those fights. And getting that buff to her crit damage and her NP certainly helps her out a lot. But I would really like to see her 2nd or 3rd skill get buffed. Potentially giving her 3rd skill a battery or even just NP gen would help her out so much, because it would allow her to compete with Arjuna Alter. And I don't think that's going to be doing anything bad for DW, because Raikou's a super popular fan service character. You know, people are going to summon for her anyway. Why not actually give her the ability to compete with Arjuna Alter? But that's just a little bit of a rant that I was doing there at the end. I'll do a video on Shuten Doji tomorrow. But with that being said, all my links are down in the description if you guys want to check out like my other channel where I talk about, you know, different anime characters beating each other up. My Twitter is going to be linked in the description, and my Discord. If you want to talk about FGO or any of these other gacha games that I play, feel free to join the Discord and, you know, come hang out and chat with other, you know, nerd type people. But I'm rambling at this point, so I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace, late guys.